Hi there guys, it's Jack for iPoker VIP. Seeing as I'm new to posting content on the site, I just figured it'd be a good idea to just say a little bit about myself first. I've been playing poker, both online and live, mainly online, for the past 4 years or so. And the medium of the game that I found myself playing the most is multi-table tournaments. What I'll be doing here on iPoker VIP is a series of low-stakes MTT strategy videos, mainly through hand history reviews of myself and of other players. When I say low-stakes MTTs, I'm talking roughly around the $10 average buy-in. So that ranges from like $5 freeze-outs through to $20 freeze-outs, and includes stuff like $3 rebuys, $5 rebuys, and so on. What we'll be doing here today is the first installment of a hand history review of a player called Stalker BS. He's not a player I know particularly well. This is ultimately the first time I've gone through this particular hand history, but I do know he runs deep in this tournament, and that it should give you all a good idea of the standard of play in low stakes tournaments, both in early stages and late stages of this low average buy-in. I don't know much about Stalker's tendencies, so I'll be talking through any spots that he gets in and discussing whether he could play any of the hands differently and so on. So that being said, let's get into it. So the first hand here, we can see in the hand history replay, is deuce 10 off, which I can see you folded, which is obviously very standard in early position. Same goes for 9-3 offsuit. Okay, so this is the first hand that we play of significance, and it's pocket nines. Obviously, this is a good starting hand. We're 100 big blinds deep. It seems like you late registered to this tournament. Not that that plays any real significance because you still joined very early. So pocket nines, early position, 3x is fine. 3x is my standard raise size early in tournaments. I think I keep 3xing it more or less till we get to, well, definitely 5100, but also I'll probably change it around 30-60, but we'll come on to that. So pocket nines, you open to 3x, which is standard in my eyes. You get flatted on the button, and you get flatted in the small blind, by the small blind. Flop comes down king 7-3, not the world's worst flop for pocket nines. Definitely one I'm going to be looking to c-bet. Your hand's still got a lot of value, and you don't want to check to the button who can just lead on his short stack, so 165 seems absolutely fine. You get a fold, and you get a call. Turn comes an ace of diamonds, which is a pretty interesting turn card when you come to think of what your next action should be. If you bet the turn again, you're more or less turning your nines into a bit of a bluff, mainly because you're not really, you're representing a bigger hand than you actually have. So in that sense, you're no longer like nines are no longer the hand that you're kind of playing accordingly. I'm personally not betting here when he checks. There's still plenty of hands in his range that we're ahead of, but if he calls the turn, we're just going to have to give up on the river. And I'm kind of just happy early on to get to showdown with my pocket nines here. I'm not looking to try and barrel him off a king, because people just don't like folding very much in low stakes tournaments. So you still have showdown value, and I'm not looking to play a big pot early on with such a marginal hand in this spot. You, however, bet 420, which kind of feels like you're trying to push him off a king, which, as I've said, is something that I'm not normally going to do here. He doesn't always have a king as well. That's not one of actually the predominant hands in his range. I feel he's also kind of maybe more likely to raise a king, because that's how your average donk will play in a low stakes tournament. So I'm kind of happy to let him keep his sevens and stuff in his range here. It's also conceivable that he would have called you with ace high out of position, because it's a pretty dry board and he would expect that you're going to c-bet that. He calls again, and obviously at this point, our nines are just no good anymore. There's no draw that he could have. He always has a king or an ace or a set or something like that. So, terrible river again. It's just another card that's higher than our nines. He checks, and you check back, which is definitely what I'd be doing as played. And he shows ace 10. This straight away shows you how people will play in these low stakes tournaments. The idea that he will check call a king high flop out of position with ace 10. He's not really got much in the way of a plan for the hand, so you kind of don't want to start trying to barrel them off stuff with pocket nines. But that's pretty much all I've got to say about that hand. 10-4, you fold that. You folded ace 9, I like that. That's not an open for me early on at all. I'm playing very tight in early stages of tournaments. The worst hand that I'm opening here, we are 8-handed. I'm opening ace jack suited. Definitely opening ace queen, and I'm opening pretty much any pair, I would think, just because, you know, if you do flop a set, there's a whole ton of value out there for you. But you fold, which is what I would do. You play the 4-3 suited eventually, so there's a raise in early position and a call. And it comes to you. This is you're 50 big blinds deep, 55 big blinds deep. This is kind of a loose call. It's not the world's worst call. You've got suited connectors, but it's low suited connectors. You're rarely going to flop a big hand. You're just going to be check folding so many flops. I think you can definitely fold here. Okay, so it's not a bad flop for you. You flop a flush draw, but again, you know, you've only got a 4 high flush draw. It's not exactly the nuts. It checks around, which is good because you're not looking to call many bets on a paired board with a 4 high flush draw. You make your flush on the turn. Now, this is a clear lead out. You have got a very strong hand right now, but obviously it can become very, very poor on the river. So another diamond comes, the board pairs again. You want to get some value now. You want to start trying to get paid with your flush. You check. That's not the right play here. You definitely need to be leading out. There's only 380 in the middle, and there's plenty behind here. You want to get the value from hands that they may have been, like a queen that they're trying to trap with, pocket pairs like 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks, so on, and also flush draws that they've picked up. If you think someone's going to fold the king of diamonds or the ace of diamonds, you're wrong. They're just not. It's exactly the kind of hands you want to get value from here. So it checks round, which is obviously terrible for you. I'm not really sure what your plan was here. I'm not sure if you were planning on check raising, which is not a good play either in my mind, because it is kind of telling them that you have a big hand, and that's not really what we want to be doing here. Okay, that's a pretty bad river. Pairs the board now. If someone somehow has a 6, you lose to that. If they were slow playing a 7, you lose to that. Don't think anyone does have a 7 though. I think you still have to bet in the hope that you just get looked up by ace high, which is something that could definitely happen. It is unlikely that anyone has a 6, and they almost never have a 7. 7 never gets checked around twice, so I am betting here. You bet 209, that seems okay. And you get 2 folds. Yeah, not particularly big fan of how that hand was played. I think there was missed value. It's very conceivable that one of them did have like the king of diamonds or the ace of diamonds, and they still just folded it here. You're always missing value with that line. Pocket kings. It's obviously a good hand. We'll be wanting to play with this. Just raise and take it. That's always a shame. So we fold a few hands here. King 7. Ooh. You limp the king 7. I don't like that one bit. That's really spewy. At most, I would be isolating with it, but more often than not, I'm just going to fold king 7 here. It's not a good hand. I mean, you've got the button, but it's just a limper. You're always getting limp called. I mean, I wouldn't be chastising you if you had decided to isolate here and just look to see bet take it down, which would happen a lot of the time. But over limping here is very bad. The only hands I'm over limping here are like the 4-3 of diamonds that you call out of the big blind. Small pocket pairs I'd limp here. I'd probably isolate a small suited ace here, but king 7 I'm definitely folding, and at most I'm isolating, but I'm never limping here. See, and then you just fold here. That's strange. Like you flop a king, you can't just automatically put him on an ace. He can lead a king. He can lead a heir. He can lead a draw. I'm at least peeling here with the king. You see, you have no idea what he has here. All you know is that he's limped and that he's now led at this flop. I'm at least calling one street here, but I wouldn't have even been in the hand to start with. So that's the end of that one. You fold the 10-4. You fold the jack 6. You fold the queen 3. 5. Deuce 6, Deuce 5, 7, 9. These all get folded. And this is the next hand with significance, is pocket kings. We get a limp under the gun. You're going to see a lot of limps in low stakes MTTs, of course. You raise 4x, that's absolutely fine. I may even make it a little bit bigger, purely because it's very rare that people will limp fold under the gun, and you just really wanted to get this pot as big as you can with pocket kings. But I wouldn't be making it much over 4x, so 4x is absolutely fine. You get a call, which you almost expect. It's a good flop. I mean, your kings aren't really at threat here. You're losing to 9-8 and sets, and the only real set you can imagine limping would be pocket 4s. So he checks you, and you bet 209. It's a bit hefty, but that's, it's fine. He's not going to fold any pocket pairs to you really on this board. He's going to always, they will always try and put you an ace king here. You've got to remember that. So this is a fine bet. I'd probably bet a little less, but this is fine. You get called, and the board pairs. That's a great card for you. It just gives you an insurance policy against some of the hands they could call with, i.e., for example, a 9-10, you now can't get beaten by the 10. 9-8 you're now ahead of, and you are just going to stack if he has 9-8. It's a really good turn card for you. So the pot's at just under 800, and you've got 21-5 behind. I'm looking to find a way to get stacks in here, because he's probably just going to be a station, unless you have reason to think otherwise. Most players are just going to struggle to drop hands against you in low stakes tournaments. So this for me is a very, very, very obvious spot to try and get your stack in on the river. So we've got to look at bet sizing for that. So there's roughly 800 in the pot, and we need to think what we need to bet that we will be able to comfortably shove the river, ideally without overshoving, because overshoving always looks suspicious. We don't want to look suspicious. We want to look very natural with this river shove. So you bet. Let's have a look at what you bet first of all. You bet 360. Now that's going to be too small, because if he calls you here, that adds 720 to the pot. The pot's going to be around 1500, and you're going to have around 1800 behind. That's not enough. You want to be betting probably closer to 500, because you need to think to yourself, what's he got here? He's got a range of pocket pairs that are lower than an 8. He can have 8x. He can have 9x. He can have he's not really going to have a set all that often, but I mean, if he has a set, we're just going, which is now a boat, we're going to have to pay him. The hand that we would be most likely folding out are the small pocket pairs and like his Jack 10, 10-7 type hands. But we just have to make our peace with that. More often than not, he's going to have an 8 or a 9, or a pocket pair, which he may just station us with. So I'm going to be betting more like closer to 500, maybe like 470 or something, just so we can organically shove the river without looking suspicious. He does call. Right now, we know that he's basically got a 9 or an 8, or he's slow playing a full house, but that's kind of rare. He would have had to have limped 8s or 9s under the gun. Not sure if we're buying that. 7 on the river. Now, that does let Jack 10 get there, but that's the only hand that river improves. It also improves pocket 7s. Not that likely, however, that he's going to be calling with pocket 7s. I'm still weighting his range very heavily to a 9 or an 8, and I just don't think he's going to fold. So you can see here you've got just under 1800, and there's 1500 in the middle. You're going to want to bet kind of big here, I think. I'm going to be betting like 950 or something, maybe even maybe over 1,000, just because he's not going to fold the pair to you here. He's not going to fold the top pair. If he has, for example, ace-9, 10-9, or even like ace-8, if he's called you to this point in time, he's probably not going to fold now. The river isn't a scare card for him. You know, if he thought he was good on the turn, he's going to think he's good on the river. So I'm going to be betting pretty big here. He checks to you, and you bet 600. That's just way too small. I mean, I can see the logic of you thinking you're wanting to milk what the last amount of value out of what is a very weak-looking range. I understand that. But you got to remember, this is a low-stakes tournament. This is a $5 freeze-out. He's not going to fold the pair to you. And he calls. And he has Jack 9. We could have stacked him there. But as I said, you know, we could have stacked him with a wider range than top pair. That's like the nut end of his range. We should have stacked him there. And that was down to turn bet sizing. And I think, you know, if you think the hand through a little bit better, then maybe we can stack him there. So we fold a bunch here. Yes, that's a fold. 8-3, 8-deuce. These are all folds, obviously. Ace jacks of spades, that's obviously a raise. You're still 3xing. I haven't got a problem with that at this stage. Gets through. Ace queen. It's another raise. And we take it. That's obviously not the end of the world. You fold the 4-6, you fold the 8-10, 8-9 we play. Oh, you play it out of the big blind. Okay, so we get a 4x from middle-ish position, and a flat on two flats, and you call with 8-9. Again, this is the same sort of situation as the 3-4 suited. It's a good hand. It can flop pretty well, and it flops pretty well multi-way. I don't hate the flat. I'd probably still fold it, but it's close. I can definitely see the merit in a flat here. As I said early on, I'm still just trying to play pots in position. That's obviously a key aspect of MTTs, is trying to abuse position. That's a terrible flop, and obviously I can only see us getting away from it here. Yeah, we do. Not too many issues with the hand. Flatting seems okay. It's just playing out of position isn't ideal. But if you're going to play out of position, I suppose 8-9 suited isn't one of the worst hands in the world to be doing that with. Okay, we get a 4. We play the ace queen here. There's a 4x here from middle position, and we have ace queen in the small blind. We are 60 something big blinds deep, like 64 big blinds deep, and we elect to. Well, okay, I don't like this one bit. I mean, you need to have some serious reasons to be 3-betting ace-queen here, and the only reason I'm ever 3-betting ace-queen here is to get ace-queen in pre-flop, and to a 4x early on in a tournament, when I have 60-odd big blinds, I'm not looking to get ace-queen in here. The worst hands I'm getting in here are... I mean, probably even as tight a range as Queens plus and Ace King plus. It's just early on, you've got a ton of equity in the tournament. It's a very soft field. You're not looking to get in spots like this where a guy has 4x'd in middle position, and we're now looking to get in 60 big blinds with Ace Queen offsuit. It's just way too loose. Every indication here is that we should even maybe just be folding this pre-flop. I mean, what's the best case scenario? Let's look at our options. We can 3-bet. We've already discussed that. It's too weak a hand to someone who's 4x. I haven't noticed them 4x so far. It's just too loose and too early in the tournament. We're too deep for this. The second option is to flat. Now, I don't hate flatting. Obviously, you want to check your HUD. You want to see how active the player is. I don't know of many players. I mean, they have to be a total spaz for us to be trying to get ace queen in pre here. But if they're a very loose player that you've seen 4x before, I think we can afford to flat ace queen here, because it's still a decent hand, and if they've been opening a lot and 4x isn't that out of the ordinary, they can perceivably be opening all their pocket pairs and all their Broadway hands to this size. And we can be ahead of some of that. And we keep that in their range when we flat, whereas if we 3-bet, we're going to get them to fold that. And we're going to kind of get them to put in hands that are normally got us in very bad shape, or at best, we're flipping against. So I can see reasons for flatting here. I can also just see reasons for just folding here. I know it seems kind of weak, maybe looking at this and thinking, it's a low-stakes MTT, and we have ace-queen, but the whole point of MTTs and the way that you beat low-stakes MTTs is by picking your spots against players that you know are worse than you. And I think flatting out of position to a 4x early on with ace-queen it's not like a great position for us. So I can see merits for folding, but I can also see merits for flatting. What I don't see, however, are merits for 3-betting, which, as we've seen, is what you do. So he calls, and this is now kind of a gross spot. We've got twice pot with ace-queens offsuit out of position, and we missed a flop, which is what's going to happen most of the time. This is still a C-bet for me. We've 3-bet pre. We're representing a really strong range when we 3-bet a 4x. We're representing, as I said, ace-queen, like ace-king plus and big pocket pairs. So this shouldn't be a really scary flop for our range. This is a C-bet. I'm betting around 650, 700, something like that. You check. Now that to me is kind of giving up the hand. The only thing I can see you doing here is check jamming, but I don't think that's what you would do with any of your value range, so this is strange. He bets very small. Now, we have 3 options again. We can fold. That for me is probably what I would be doing in this spot. Well, it is what I'd be doing in this spot, purely because the other 2 options are too gross. I don't think we represent enough when we check raise here. Not necessarily that he's thinking so much about our range, but if we check raise, it's just a pure power play, and we're hoping he folds, and he's not going to fold that much if he actually has something. If he has a jack, he's never folding it. If he has say he has 10s or something, he's probably just not folding it. Like, people just don't like folding. We've already seen, I think it was him, it may not have been him, who didn't fold the Jack-9 against us, but, that was a perfect example where people just don't like to fold pairs. I'm just going to fold here, personally. We've still got 50 big blinds behind. We can fight another day. Everything else seems too spewy for my liking. You call. That, for me, is the worst play. You are representing a very scared hand. You're representing nothing. When you check call here, you are representing a very weak range. You're representing you never have a jack. You very rarely have a set because it just seems unlikely that board would produce many sets for you. And I don't think that's how you would ever play queens, kings, aces. This is just a very spewy flat here. I don't think you have any idea where you're at in the hand. We're just going to get lost and we're going to fold so many turns. Say the turn comes at anything. If the turn comes anything other than an ace or a queen and he bets, we just have to fold. We've left ourselves more or less pot on the turn. It's just a terrible situation we've developed for ourselves. We've called, I guess, looking to improve, and you should never be doing that out of position with these stack-to-pot size situations. It's a queen, which is absolute gin. That's obviously a dream card, and now we're super excited to get it in versus someone who we are going to have to presume is a bad player. He checks back, which is a shame. Now, the river's a jack. This is interesting. It's very conceivable that he would play a jack this way. But the way that I'm looking at it is that we're never folding ace-queen here. We're just not. I don't see any situation when you've played the hand this way and he's played the hand this way that you are going to fold ace-queen here. So now the situation is we have to balance out betting for value or checking to induce. And when we check, are we just going to be always paying off a better hand or not? There was a flush draw on the flop. He could have, if he had 9-10, he's beating us. He doesn't have that. The only thing that has completely airballed and has no pair here is a flush draw. Or alternately something that he was just stabbing at with on the flop. I think I'm going to be inclined to probably value bet here. Try and get value from like pocket 10s, pocket 9s, an 8, maybe even ace high. Depends how bad he is. I would be looking to bet maybe even something small so that it can also double up as an induce. Something like 600. Something like that. Something that he could pay off with worse and also shove worse over the top. If we've decided we're never going to fold when he bets, in the sense that, the logic is if he has a jack, he has a jack, but there's also plenty of stuff that he can bluff with. I actually quite like betting like 600 here to get value from the things that he would check back with showdown value, and also maybe inducing a bluff from some hearts. Or just some air that he has. But you check, and he checks back, so he's almost always got like an 8 or 10s or just absolute air here. He has pocket 9s, yeah, exactly. Which is exactly the kind of hand that, we can expect him to have in this spot. We were talking about 10s, of course, 9s is the same as 10s in this spot. I would have bet 600 on the river, as I said, and we probably would have got a call. I feel like this is a really, really clear example of how flatting out of position or 3-betting out of position in weird spots like this can sort of backfire. This is a key example of why you shouldn't be 3-betting hands like ace-queen here. I mean, we got lucky. We got bailed out by the turn here. But this is a really strange line, and one that we shouldn't be taking at low-stakes tournaments. So we fold all manner of garbage. We've been moved to a new table. We play the 6-9 suited, so a raise, and you call out the big blind. I don't do it. Again, the fact that I'm normally playing quite a few tables it adds to this fact in the sense that you don't want to have like a weird spot out position going on the side. But even if you're one-tabling this tournament, this is still probably a fold. You're looking for a very specific type of flop with 9-6 of hearts, and otherwise you're just going to fold. You do hit top pair, but this is the kind of situation that can develop. You're going to struggle to get away from a 9 here, and you're just going to get absolutely value-towned by anything that's beating you. You've got a strong hand in relation to the board, but in relation to a range that they're wanting to continue with, this is a very vulnerable hand. He bets. Okay, well now there's a raise, and now this becomes a very, very easy fold for you. I can't imagine you doing anything else, especially seeing as you're new to the table and have no information. You do fold. Let's just see how this hand plays out. You would have turned to your pair, and you would never be getting away from this hand now. 9-8 and kings. See, this is exactly the kind of spot that would develop. You would, I mean, obviously the 6 comes, but you'd be playing a hand against kings. You've got 9-6, so you just get, oh, we got there, it's fun. But yeah, I just fold the 9-6 pre there, for those reasons that we've discussed. Apparently you play the ace-jack here. Interesting. Okay, so there's a limp in middle position, and he's been isolated. Out of position, this is just a fold for me. You've got no information on these players. You've got a hand that is kind of weak to against Lampard's range. I mean, you're beating some of it, obviously, but not enough to be flatting here. Whoa, okay. I don't know what this is. You've just shoved. This is very, very strange. Blinds are 30-60 and you've put in just under 5k. That is kind of insane. That's 80 big blinds that have just hit the middle here. Over a limp and a raise. I don't know what this is. Like, there's not enough out there to make this a profitable play. If you get called, you're almost always in terrible shape. Like, you're never getting called by ace-10 or worse here. So this is just kamikaze poker. I assume that if I was to ask you about this on a different day, you would say, oh, I was bored, or I don't know what this is. This is just insanity. I'm just folding pre-flop here because you're out of position. I didn't even consider the fact that you might just 3-bet here. This is obviously not the optimal play. You get called by 10-8, of course you do. But this is, again, I mean, this doesn't make this play good. It's all about picking your spots, and shipping in a lot of chips with ace-jack is not a good idea. And it looks like, yeah, well, we hold. You can't get confused in your mind that was an okay play. That was absolute kamikaze poker, and obviously he's a terrible player. That was just two worlds colliding there, two people wanting to give up simultaneously, and we just happened to have the best of it. Yeah, I don't need to talk any more about that. That is obviously not the right play, and I think folding pre certainly is the right play. So we go through a long stretch of folding hands here. These all look like acceptable fold. I don't understand. Oh, you must be sitting out, I guess. That's the only conclusion I can come to right now, because there is just a long stretch of folding hands. Interesting. These are all folded hands. Okay, well, we return here with the a7 suited. Okay, so there's a limp under the gun +1. For some reason, we're 7-handed in what is a 9-handed tournament. You isolate a7 suited. Well, blinds are 5100. Let's look at the stack size. This is actually a pretty healthy table for stack sizes. There's no short stacks to worry about. Isolating a7 suited here. Open limp has 38 big blinds. I'm not really going to chastise you for taking the aggressive line here. We're fairly short-handed, 7-handed here. This is an aggressive play. I don't dislike it. I also see the merits to limping behind. I mean, we're not if we get cold flatted, it kind of becomes a disappointing situation. Yeah, I don't mind it particularly. It's aggressive. That's something we don't really want to see now, because we're going to have some horrible spots where we flop ace-x, and we're just going to be playing kind of scared. Obviously, the limper calls as well. And we flop top pair and a backdoor flush draw. So we're 3 ways, and the cold caller leads out for 100. You get a fold from the limper. Now, this is kind of Blair. When people bet out like this, they never have a strong hand. So with that in mind, we've kind of got to balance our options between keeping the poor hands in his range and pot controlling. So, and also, of course, getting value, which is obviously the main thing. I'm going to raise here personally. We've got a pretty strong hand, and we're crushing N Pratas's range. We got top pair. We got backdoor nut flush draw. He should very rarely have a good ace here. I'm going to be raising this to like 650, 700. You choose to just flat There are some merits to that. You keep his air in his range, you keep his weak hands like his queens, and maybe even like a 3 and some pocket pairs that he's literally just clicking buttons with. But I'm probably going to raise there, get some value, and also protect my hand a little bit. Like, for example, now, he can have anything now. He can have Queen 9. That's not the world's worst turn card, however. Like, nothing in the sense of draws that he was just, again, clicking button with to get there. He bets 100 again. Surely now we make a stand and raise to, like, 700, 800, something like that. We just flat again. This is becoming very strange. We now have the absolute nuts. He bets 100 again. You have to raise now. Please tell me that you raise now. You do. Good. And that's really big. And in my mind, it's too big, actually, because his range is so ludicrously weak at this point. Like, he never has anything good. He never has 2 pair. He never has a set. He very, 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 very rarely has ace-x. So it's very tough for this bet to get called. I'm probably going to make it, like, again, like 600 or something. That, you know, he will just call with a queen or call with a 9. This is a little bit big. And I think you're going to get a fold way more often than anything else. And you do get a fold. I don't particularly like that line. I feel like that line lost a lot of value and just gave his entire range a lot of chances to improve. Yeah, we should have been raising the flop. We should definitely have been raising the turn. And when you raise the river, you might have made it a bit too big. That's kind of how I felt about that. Okay, so you got ace-10. You go for a 3x. I stop 3xing definitely at this point. I make it like 250. This is where I switch to 2.5x in general. Just every little bit helps, and it maintains the same level of fold equity with your raise pre. You get a call from the small blind. Okay, this is obviously going to be a c-bet. Your hand's going to figure to be the best hand most of the time anyway. You've got backdoor diamonds. You know, he shouldn't hit this flop very often. Pretty big bet. I don't normally bet over half pot in these situations because, you know, 300's going to get the same job done. If he's missed the board, he's just going to fold. He chooses to call, and the turn's a king of spades. That's a good card for us. When he calls the flop, his range... Let's look at his range very briefly. He has air, like I say air, but like air with showdown value, such as ace-high type hands. Sometimes he has a 5, he can have a 4, he can have diamonds, he can have a straight draw, he can have pocket pairs. He's got a very, very wide range for calling this flop. The king of spades he should like next to never have a king in his hand unless he's got like a king high flush draw. That's it. So when he checks, I'm going to be betting this turn for a few reasons. One, we actually get value from a lot of his draws. If he's not going to... We're in position. This is key. We can bet the turn, get him to call with his diamond draws and his straight draws, and then just check back the river, and we've got 2 streets of value out of them. If he's made a pair, he's not going to lead into us with them, so we don't have to worry about, you know, we've been caught... He's caught the river and we're going to get bluff caught. That's not a worry. We can just check back with our showdown value. We still have a lot of showdown value. But we can also push out some of his hands. If we bet the king, we can conceivably get him to fold any pocket pair lower than a king. He can fold a 4. We can get him to fold hands that are beating us when we bet this turn. And we can also get value from some of his draws. So this is a definite bet for me. You check. And our 7 gets there. We're now losing to pretty much all his straight draws. They've almost all made a straight or made a pair. If he has a flush draw with 7 in it, that's got there, and we're never going to get him to fold it. And I don't think he should really be folding any pocket pairs to us when we bet the river. So when he checks, I think he would have bluffed his missed draws here. I think he would have, if he had absolute air, he would have bluffed. Because otherwise that's just a ridiculously passive line from him. So when it checks to us, we actually rep nothing if we bet the river. We rep pocket 7s. We rep 7s full. That's all we represent, pretty much. I don't think we would take this line with a 5, with a 4, with a pocket pair, with king, x. No, don't buy it. I think we just have to check down here, hope he's got a missed draw somehow, even though I think he would have bet those. When we check back, I pretty much think we're going to lose to a pocket pair, maybe a 4, maybe a 7. But we're never getting any of that to fold, because we represent absolutely nothing with the check with the bet line here, except for pocket sevens really. So I think this is a good spot to check back. Somehow pray that our ace high is good, because we're not getting anything to fold with the line we've taken, and he has ace four. And yeah, this is exactly the kind of hand that we expected him to have, and if we'd have bet the king, we would have got through. That applies to so much of his range. And also, again, as I said, we would have taxed his draws. We have a strong ace high. He never really has a better ace high than us here. So, again, I think we missed an opportunity to get him to fold worse and value bet. Get him to fold better and also value bet against worse on the turn. I think the turn's a definite bet here. Okay, so we don't play a hand for a while. Then we get pocket sevens, and we do play that. This, for me, is a classic spot where I like to over-limp here. Isolating's too aggressive. He's got less than 20 big blinds. When you limp here, you're going to normally entice a couple of people into the pot, which is actually kind of what you want with pocket sevens. It plays so badly post-flop. But if we flop a set, which is ultimately what we're looking to do when we limp here, I see you raise, which is something I don't really like, which I'll talk about in a second. We want people in the pot when you flop a set. That's just kind of how sets work. You want to get someone to catch something decent, and you take their chips. You're not really going to get to do that when you isolate here, and also he's got so few chips. I think it's just going to become a sticky situation far too frequently. I'm just going to over-limp here, and this is going to cause us a lot of problems here. If he limp shoves, we kind of have to, we will have to call for a third of our stack with sevens, which is gross. If he calls and checks and we c-bet, we're going to pot commit ourselves a ton of the time with pocket sevens. That's bad. It's just the best case scenario here is that he folds pre-flop, and when you're doing that, and when that's the best outcome and that's his stack size, this normally isn't a good raise. You do get called. But he checks and has 1700 left. This is now a horrible spot. We can c-bet and just pray that he folds, or we can check. If we check, we're going to get made to fold the best hand a bunch of the time on the turn. If we bet and he shoves, it's just horrible and kind of spewy. This is why we don't raise the sevens pre, because as I said already, people don't like to limp fold. When he limps and we 4x, he almost always calls, and we almost always get a horrible spot develop. That's why I just over-limp in that spot. On the balance of it, I'm probably going to c-bet to like 570 here just to protect my hand. He normally doesn't have an ace. And then I'm probably just bet folding as played, but it's disgusting nonetheless. You bet 6-9-3, which I think is too big. I think when you bet that much, I think you have to bet call and pray that he just has a draw or he's bluffing, which is so rare. That's a very fortunate outcome. It really is. And, that situation could have become a lot worse. I think for low-stakes players, results orientation is a big problem in their game. I speak to a lot of people who are better than the average MTT player, but you'll hear them be very results-orientated in their play. If you say to them now, was this line with pocket sevens good? They'll go, yeah, no, it's fine. It's not. This was a bad choice of pre-flop play. You can very frequently get put in on this flop, or he shoves in this flop, and you're just left with ridiculous pot odds and a really bad hand, but it's a pair. And folding is gross, and calling is gross, and it's just gross. Don't like the raise pre. I'm just flatting here. Saves us a ton of sticky situations. So we'll look at a couple more hands before we end this part of the video. Ace Queen again. Oh, we get a walk. That's an exciting hand. Can't really give too much advice about a walk. Ace King of Hearts, obviously, this is a very pretty hand. I raise a little bit less than this. This is too... I'm probably raising to like 275 here, but again, it's semantics. 300's fine. It's 2.5x. It's acceptable. You get flattered on the button, and your head's up. Now, okay, this is an absolutely awful flop when you consider the situation. We've raised in fairly early position. Well, more middle position. We've opened in middle position, to be precise, and we've got flattered on the button. He's got a lot of chips. He's got over 100 big blinds. When he flats the button, you assume he's going to have a fairly wide range, and this flop just smacks that range in the face. Obviously, we have like no equity in this hand. Even if we turn a king or an ace, it's still an incredibly vulnerable hand to the range that he has. I'm just going to check fold ace king here. I think if I see you c-bet here, to me that's an indication that you're c-betting too much, because people who c-bet, I know people who are very, good players and much better than your average low stakes player, but they just c-bet way too much. And if you c-bet this spot with this hand, given the position of him flatting the button, this is a clear indication that you, Stalker BS, or anyone watching that would c-bet here, is c-betting too much. And you c-bet over half pot. And even if he folds, this is for me still not the best c-bet in the world, because you are going to get called way too often in this. And you've got to think ahead. What's your plan? What's your plan in the hand? What turn cards are going to make us happy? What turn cards are we going to barrel? What turn cards are bad for us? And pretty much every turn card is bad for us. And the turn cards that we are going to barrel actually are just perfect for his range as well. So we're going to end up getting in a lot of sticky spots, unless we're planning on just c-betting once and then just giving up on the hand. Unless we improve, we're out of position. It's just so many bad things can come from us c-betting here and him calling. We so rarely win the pot when we bet here and he calls. As it turns out, he folds and we win the pot. But again, as I said, this isn't a c-bet spot, because when we get called, unless we improve, we are almost always going to lose this pot. We're going to struggle to bluff him off a lot of things, and we're also going to find ourselves losing a lot of chips through bluffing. And also, when we make a hand, we're often going to lose chips, because it's terrible board for turning an ace or a king. So I guess we'll look at one more hand. These are all fold. Let's see the king jack hand. Yeah, that's an okay fold. Okay, 6-7. 3x from the button. I'm hoping you don't flat here. There are two plays that are acceptable here. One would be a fold. The other is a 3-bet. You 3-bet, and I like that. It's a really, really good spot to 3-bet. I'm not a big fan of early on in tournaments, and this is still relatively early. Okay, I'm going to very quickly talk about my feelings about 3-bets early on in MTTs, especially low stakes MTTs. Rule number 1. Do not 3-bet light before the antes come in. That is a rule that I abide by. I find it always unprofitable. You are going to get flatted far more often than you should. Basically, don't get too creative with your 3-betting. If there's an under the gun open, do not 3-bet that light. If there is a 3-bet in middle position and we're on the button, that's the kind of spot we can start 3-betting. Button versus small blind versus big blind. These are spots we can start 3-betting, but I only do it after the antes kick in. So that is the case here. We have against the button opener, who obviously is going to be opening a fairly wide range. We have a hand that plays very well post-flop. The stack sizes is also something to be aware of. I don't like particularly 3-betting light, generally ever, when there is a stack behind me in this particular situation, which is less than 20 big blinds, less than kind of 25 big blinds, makes me puke a little bit. But this guy here has 40 big blinds, so we can 3-bet and fold to his 4-bet shove if that's what happens. And obviously if Spyros 4-bets, then we can just fold to that too. Sizing, it's a little on the big side. I'd make it more like 11 something. But obviously you're out of position, so you want to de-incentivize the idea of flatting from the villain. So making it fairly big is perfectly acceptable. You've just kind of gone 3 times their raise size. It's a little bit big. It's kind of cash gamey, if you know what I'm saying. But good spot to 3-bet. Good hand selection to do it with. And if it works, which it does, nice. You've picked up a 3x. You've picked up like 600 odd chips here. A bit more actually, closer to 800 with the antes. It's a really good spot to pick up chips, and obviously that's something you spotted. So we're going to call that a day on the first part of this video. Hopefully that helped with some low stakes concepts. Obviously if you're a mid stakes player or a high stakes player, you're going to know this stuff. But if you're new to MTTs and you're looking to get in at the ground level, hopefully this video has helped you. And do look out for part 2, which will be coming in a week or two, where we will continue this particular hand history. So this has been Jack for iPoker VIP, and thanks for watching.